Here's the secret chronic pain patients don't say out loud. Sometimes we wonder if we're making it up, if maybe everyone else is right, if maybe we're exaggerating, if maybe we're just weak and everyone else would push through this without complaint. We lie awake at night thinking, what if I'm faking? What if this is all in my head? What if I'm the problem? We have good days and think, see, I'm fine. I was being dramatic. We see someone with worse conditions functioning better and think they can do it. Why can't I? I must just be giving up too easily. We've been gaslit so thoroughly by doctors, family, society that we've started gaslighting ourselves, and it's one of the loneliest, most shameful feelings in the world. Today, we're breaking the silence on the internalized doubt chronic pain patients carry, the self-gaslighting, the imposter syndrome, the fear that maybe, just maybe, we're making it all up. Welcome to Painfully Real. Today we're going to the darkest, most hidden corner of the chronic pain experience. The secret fear that your pain isn't real. This is the shame we don't talk about until now. The doubt doesn't start with you. It starts with the world telling you your pain isn't real over and over until you start to believe it. The first seed of doubt often gets planted when tests come back normal. You're in excruciating pain. You know something is wrong, but the x-ray, MRI, blood work, all normal. The doctor says everything looks fine. There's nothing wrong. And a small voice in your head whispers, maybe they're right. Maybe I'm imagining this. You know you're not. You're living with this pain every day, but when medical science can't find evidence, that voice gets louder. Every doctor who tells you it's just stress, every family member who says you don't look sick, every friend who suggests maybe you're focusing on it too much, every employer who implies you're exaggerating to avoid work. Each dismissal is a drop of doubt, and over months and years, those drops become an ocean you're drowning in. This is the cruelest part. Good days make you doubt your bad days. You have a day where pain is manageable, where you can function almost normally, where you forget about your condition for a few hours, and you think, see, I'm fine. I was making a big deal out of nothing. I must have been exaggerating how bad it really is. You forget that chronic conditions are often variable, that good days don't erase bad days, that fluctuation is a feature of many chronic illnesses, not proof they're not real, but in the moment, a good day feels like proof you were faking all along. You see someone with the same condition who seems to function better, they work full-time, you can't, they exercise regularly, you can barely move, they seem happy and active, you're isolated and struggling, and you think, if they can do it with this condition, why can't I? I must just be weak. I must be giving up. I must be using my pain as an excuse. You don't consider that severity varies wildly between individuals, that their good face on social media isn't their whole reality, that they might be suffering in ways you don't see, that different bodies respond differently to the same condition. You just see them succeeding where you're failing and conclude you're the problem. When you need a cane, walker, wheelchair, or other mobility aid, there's this voice that says, do you really need that? Or are you just being lazy? Even when the aid dramatically improves your function and quality of life, you feel like a fraud using it. I can walk sometimes without it, so maybe I don't really need it. Maybe I'm exaggerating my limitations. Maybe people will think I'm faking. You refuse accommodations you actually need because you're afraid of being seen as weak or fraudulent, requesting disability parking, asking for workplace accommodations, using accessible seating, declining invitations because of your limitations. Every time you advocate for your needs, a voice whispers, are you sure you need this, or are you just making excuses? Are you taking advantage of a system meant for people who are really disabled? You minimize your own needs. You push through pain rather than ask for help. You suffer unnecessarily because you're afraid of being seen as someone who's faking. Chronic pain and depression often coexist, and that creates a terrifying thought loop. Maybe I'm not really in pain. Maybe I'm just depressed and interpreting normal sensations as pain. Maybe if I fixed my mental health, the pain would go away, which means it's not real physical pain, which means I'm making it up. You start to wonder if everything is psychological, if your pain is all in your head, even though chronic pain causes depression, not just the other way around. Depression doesn't create physical pain from nothing. The brain is involved in pain processing. That doesn't make pain fake. But the doubt remains. What if I'm just mentally ill and creating this pain? When you're exhausted all the time, you start to wonder, is this fatigue from my condition, or am I just lazy? Do I really need to rest this much, or am I using pain as an excuse to avoid responsibilities? Maybe if I just pushed harder, I'd have more energy. Maybe I'm giving in to weakness. The line between listening to your body's limits and giving up too easily becomes blurred, and you're terrified you're on the wrong side of that line. The doubt doesn't exist in isolation. It feeds into guilt, shame, and self loathing. You cancel plans constantly. You can't participate in family activities. You can't work. You need help with basic tasks. And you feel crushing guilt about it. If my pain was real, surely I'd be trying harder to overcome it. If I was stronger, I wouldn't let this stop me. I'm ruining everyone's lives because I can't just push through this. The guilt convinces you that your suffering is a choice, that you're choosing to be disabled, that you're choosing to burden others. And if it's a choice, then the pain must not be that real, must not be that bad, must be something you're doing to yourself. We live in a culture that equates worth with productivity. If you can't work, can't contribute, can't produce, you feel worthless. And that worthlessness feeds the doubt. Maybe I could work if I really tried. Maybe I'm just using pain as an excuse because I'm lazy. You see your value diminishing. And you blame yourself for not overcoming your limitations through sheer willpower. When you need help, financial, physical, emotional, you feel like a burden. And burdens are bad. Burdens should be eliminated. So you start to think, if my pain was legitimate, people wouldn't mind helping me. If I was really disabled, I wouldn't feel so guilty about needing support. Maybe I'm exaggerating my needs. Maybe I'm taking advantage of people's kindness. You minimize your needs, refuse help you desperately require, and suffer alone to avoid being a burden. Because somewhere deep down, you believe burdens don't deserve help. And if you deserve help, you must not really be a burden. And if you're not really a burden, maybe you're not really that sick. You compare your suffering to people with cancer, paralysis, terminal illness, and you think they have real problems. My pain isn't real suffering, I'm being dramatic. You invalidate your own experience because it doesn't meet some imaginary threshold of bad enough. You forget that suffering isn't a competition, that your pain is real regardless of how it compares to others, that different types of suffering are all valid. But the comparison makes you feel like a fraud for claiming disability when real disabled people exist. You apologize constantly. I'm sorry I can't make it. I'm sorry I need help with this. I'm sorry I'm not feeling well. I'm sorry I'm so useless. Each apology reinforces the belief that you're doing something wrong by being sick, that your pain is an inconvenience you're inflicting on others, that you should be sorry for having a medical condition. You're apologizing for existing with limitations, which means you believe those limitations are your fault, which means you believe you're choosing them, which means you doubt they're real. Sometimes you push through pain to prove to yourself and others that you can. You work when you shouldn't. You attend events you can't handle. You do things that will cause days of suffering afterward, and in the moment of pushing through, you feel victorious. See, I can do this. The pain wasn't that bad. I was just being weak before. Then the crash comes, days or weeks of intensified pain, and you blame yourself for that too. I caused this by overdoing it. If I was smarter about pacing, I wouldn't be suffering now. This is my fault. You can't win. Push through and feel like you were faking before. Don't push through and feel like you're not trying hard enough. Chronic pain patients develop a specific kind of imposter syndrome, the fear that we're imposters in our own sick bodies. When you use disabled parking, you feel like people are judging you. She doesn't look disabled, she's faking. And part of you agrees with them. Part of you thinks, they're right. I'm not really disabled. I'm taking a spot from someone who actually needs it. You've internalized the doubt so deeply that you've become your own harshest critic. This is particularly damaging. You underreport your symptoms because you're afraid of seeming dramatic. The doctor asks, how's your pain? You want to say, unbearable, I'm suffering constantly, I can barely function. But you say, it's okay, managing, could be worse. Because you're afraid if you tell the truth, they'll think you're exaggerating, they'll think you're drug seeking, they'll think you're making it up. So you minimize, and then you don't get appropriate treatment and your condition worsens, and you blame yourself for not advocating better. But you couldn't advocate better because you don't trust your own experience enough to present it accurately. When you have a good day, you feel guilty. Guilty that you told people you were sick when you're clearly fine today. Guilty that you took accommodations when you're functioning today. Guilty that you're wasting a good day when you should be accomplishing everything you couldn't do on bad days. Good days become evidence of fraud instead of what they are, temporary reprieve. There's this constant measurement. Am I disabled enough to claim disability? To use accommodations, to ask for help? You see people with more visible disabilities and think, that's real disability. I'm not like that. I'm not disabled enough to deserve help. You gatekeep yourself from resources you actually need because you've internalized the message that you're not sick enough to deserve them. There's this underlying anxiety. What if someone discovers I'm faking? What if a doctor runs the right test and finds nothing wrong? What if someone sees me on a good day and reports me? What if I'm called out publicly as a fraud? This fear isn't based in reality, you're not faking, but the gaslighting has been so thorough that you believe you might be, even though you're living with daily suffering. Understanding why chronic pain patients doubt their own pain is important for breaking free of it. When authority figures, doctors, family, employers repeatedly tell you your pain isn't real, you start to believe them. Gaslighting works by making you doubt your own perception of reality. And chronic pain patients experience systematic, prolonged gaslighting from multiple sources. Eventually, you internalize those messages. The external doubt becomes internal doubt. Your brain struggles with the disconnect between I'm in severe pain and I look fine, tests are normal, I can sometimes function. That cognitive dissonance is uncomfortable, and one way to resolve it is to conclude maybe the pain isn't real. We're taught that pain is weakness leaving the body, mind over matter. No pain, no gain. Tough people don't complain. These cultural messages tell us that if you're experiencing pain, you're weak. And if you can't overcome it, you're failing. Chronic pain patients internalize this and conclude, I'm weak. I'm failing. Real strong people wouldn't be stopped by this. Therefore, my pain must not be real, or I'm just not strong enough to handle normal sensations. Humans crave certainty. We want clear answers. Chronic pain often doesn't have clear answers. The cause might be unknown, the tests might be inconclusive, the treatment might not work. That uncertainty is terrifying, and sometimes it's easier to conclude, I'm making it up, than to sit with I'm suffering and nobody knows why or how to fix it. At least making it up gives you an explanation, a sense of control. If you're causing it, maybe you can stop causing it. If you're reading this and recognizing yourself in this doubt and this fear that you're faking, I need you to hear some truths. People who are actually faking illness don't agonize about whether they're faking. The fact that you're worried about it is evidence you're not faking. Actual malingerers don't have this level of self doubt. They know they're faking and they don't care. You care. You're terrified you're faking, which means you're not. Variable symptoms are a feature of many chronic conditions, not proof they're not real. A good day doesn't mean you were exaggerating bad days. It means you have a chronic condition with fluctuating severity. That's normal. That's expected. That's part of how many illnesses work. Medical science is limited. We can't test for everything. We can't see everything. Normal test results mean current testing doesn't show abnormalities. They don't mean nothing is wrong. Many legitimate conditions don't show up on standard testing. That doesn't make them less real. Severity varies, bodies vary, circumstances vary. Someone else functioning better with the same condition doesn't mean you're not trying hard enough. It means they have a different experience of that condition, or different support systems, or different severity, or they're suffering in ways you can't see. Your experience is valid regardless of how it compares to anyone else's. Needing accommodations, mobility aids, support, these don't make you a faker or a fraud. They make you someone with a medical condition using appropriate tools and support to function. That's smart, that's self-care, that's survival, not weakness, not fraud, not giving up. You deserve the same compassion you'd give anyone else with chronic illness. If a friend told you they were suffering, you wouldn't tell them they're making it up. You wouldn't tell them to just try harder. You wouldn't doubt their reality. Give yourself that same grace. Here's how to start untangling yourself from the self-gaslighting. You live in your body, You're the world's foremost expert on your own physical experience. If you're in pain, you're in pain, full stop. You don't need external validation to trust yourself. When you catch yourself thinking, maybe I'm faking, pause. Ask, where did that thought come from? Who taught me to doubt myself? Recognize it's not your thought, it's the internalized voice of everyone who dismissed you. You can acknowledge it and choose not to believe it. You don't need to apologize for having a medical condition. Practice saying, I can't do that because of my health, instead of, I'm so sorry I can't do that. I need this accommodation instead of, I'm sorry to be a burden, but your needs are valid. State them without apology. Keep a symptom journal. Track your pain, limitations, and experiences. When doubt creeps in, you have concrete evidence of your reality. You're not making it up. The journal proves it. Talk to other chronic pain patients. Join support groups. Hearing that others have the same doubts, the same fears, the same self-gaslighting helps you realize it's not you. It's the system that created this doubt. Community validates your experience in ways that break through the doubt. If someone consistently makes you doubt your own reality, limit contact with them. You don't owe access to people who gaslight you, even if they're family. Protect your mental health by surrounding yourself with people who believe you. The fact that you're afraid you're faking is one of the cruelest aspects of chronic pain. You're suffering. And on top of that suffering, you're carrying the shame and fear that maybe you're making it all up. You're not. You're living with a real medical condition in a world that systematically invalidates invisible illness. The doubt isn't evidence that you're faking. It's evidence that you've been gaslit so thoroughly that you've started doing it to yourself. But you can stop. You can choose to believe yourself, to trust your own experience, to know that your pain is real, whether anyone else believes it or not. You're not making it up. You're not weak. You're not a fraud. You're someone with chronic pain navigating a world that doesn't understand and a medical system that can't always help. And that's hard enough without adding self-doubt on top of it. Believe yourself. You deserve that much. Thank you for listening to Painfully Real. If this episode made you feel less alone in your doubt, share it. Let's normalize talking about this secret shame, because the more we talk about it, the less power it has. You're not faking, and you're not alone. I'll see you next time.